Hello and welcome to PodFAST, the only Sonic podcast that can't spin dash. And on that subject, we're talking about Sonic 1, right where it started. Or, well, actually Sonic first appeared in a racing game, the name of which escapes me, but I think it was an arcade game and he appears as a little, like an air freshener sort of thing. Someone will have to look that up for me. But here we have our usual crowd. It's always interesting
when a character appears. Oh my goodness.
Radmobile,
yes.
Or Radmobile, maybe?
Radmobile? It's like Hydro City. Is it Hydro City or Hydrocity?
I think it's one of those things that I'm like, it could be both, really.
Yeah. Let us introduce ourselves to our panel. First we have Blazy.
Yo, I'm here.
Hello. Garaco.
We're here down in Pumpkin Hill. You ain't ready?
Rick.
Hello.
Yoto.
Howdy.
Simple. Hello.
Hi.
And we also have a new face. Shroke. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi. And myself, fattoler. I think I'll be calling myself that from now on, it's just easier. Like last time, we'll be going around our panel and asking what we thought of it. So, let's start off with Blazy. Blazy, what was your first experience playing Sonic?
If I remember right, I think the first time I'd actually been able to play Sonic 1 was probably actually on the 6-pack that was released for the Genesis that had a Super Hang-On and a few, Revenge of the Shinobi and a few other games that were on it at the time. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't remember ever being super crazy about 1, but that's because I had played 3 first. Because 3 was my first mainline game. But I mean, from there, end up sinking a bit more time into it with various other ports and stuff in the future, including not realizing what I was getting myself into at the time with the dreaded Game Boy Advance port. Still got that sitting around somewhere.
I actually remember really
in
wanting
the garbage, I hope.
That's where it belongs, but no.
You never know when you might need a good punishment for someone.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's good to keep things on
gag
hand like
gift.
that.
Or you may become a collector and you'll...
A gag gift in that it's a gift that you will gag on.
No, that's a Switch cartridge.
Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, it took me a second to realise what that was.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it was just the Sonic 1 was just kind of always there. I was never too crazy about it in comparison, especially to some of the later games. I can get a bit more into why I feel that way when we go a bit further in breaking down the game itself.
Yeah. So, Garaco, how did you sort of first experience Sonic 1?
My favourite game console was the GameCube, and it's the one I played most often, so I remember getting Sonic Mega Collection on there. So, Sonic Mega Collection, of course, had all the classics, so I, played the first one on there, and I was just like, oh, well, this is interesting. But I only really first ever completed it, only probably last year, where I decided, because I was quite excited for Mania, I just decided to play through all the classic games and started with Sonic 1 and experienced the whole thing.
Yeah. Rick?
I
mean, it was your second game, as you told me last
Yeah,
time.
it was basically the second game I ever played. I played it when it came out. I was, again, like I said, I was there in the beginning. What to do at the end of the first boss, because I got to the end of the stage, I couldn't have been that old at all, and I just had no idea how to hit the guy, and I was too busy trying to dodge the giant swinging ball, and I was like, oh, the game has stopped. How do I keep going right? There is a guy here on platforms now, what do I do?
Well, you know.
'Cause I get-
What's a boss fight?
I had never really seen one before, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean, to be fair, the last sort of game you'd have played would have been Mario, Super Mario Brothers, and all you had to do there was just jump over Bowser
yeah,
and hit the axe.
Every level.
right.
Well, not every level, but
I mean, every boss fight was just Bowser.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's
Talk about it
interesting.
now.
I mean, when you were a kid, how far did you get? Did you just keep playing and playing until you got to the end?
Pretty much. Like, it wasn't mine at the time. I actually loaned it from a neighbor. So again, we only had however long it took them to get bored with whatever game we gave them, which I
Yeah.
think was probably Altered Beast. So I don't know how
Quite
long
soon.
they decided to play that. Yeah, but I remember getting quite far. I think Spring Yard. The first couple of times I played it, funny enough, I think Spring Yard was the furthest I got.
Hmm.
But
I mean-
any chance I got, I was back over, coming up with an excuse to swap something else in order to try again.
Yeah, but I suppose, you know, as it was one of your first games you ever played, what did you think of it? Yeah, I mean, just as an experience.
It was kind of funny because since the first game I played was Mario 1, I have a weird direct comparison between the two. And when I first started playing Mario, I didn't know there was a run button. So imagine trying to play Mario 1. I can tell you where you can get to without the run button, and it's not very far because you need to do run and jumps to get past a bunch of piranha plants in 1-2. So when I discovered the run button, it kind of completely changed the game, right? And imagine basically doubling your speed, getting way bigger jumps, and going, oh man, you know, you can adjust a lot of your trajectory and how you play just by holding down the B button. And then I picked up Sonic, and all of that went out the window.
Yeah, because
Fast,
I mean that's the
get out,
interesting
do
thing
that.
about Sonic is that you don't run right off the bat. You have to, you know, build up your speed. Well, you can talk
It's
about
actually,
that a bit later.
yeah, it's actually really kind of intuitive as well, because even when I was a little kid, I knew to press down to roll down hills and that kind of thing, right? So the game doesn't have to explain much to you. And I was just like, and it was really useful because I was a little kid. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I knew if you bounced off stuff and you were going faster, you would go higher. Stuff like that was really obvious. Like,
I was gonna say that's kind of interesting that you bring that up, and I don't mean to talk over you because it's very true. When I was a kid, I had Sonic. I didn't have any instruction manuals. I don't know how I figured out how to play Sonic, but the way I played Sonic as a child is exactly how I play him now. Like, there was nothing to tell me how to play Sonic. It's just like they found the perfect intuitive game formula.
yeah, there's something about just being able to pick up and play, right? And going, hey,
You know, that makes sense. You know, just
Yeah.
it feels
Yeah,
natural.
it felt natural. It was really fun to play, and you know, it suckered me in long enough to go, hey, they're gonna make another one. Okay, I'm in.
Well, I suppose that'll be a topic for next time. But you know, you went to. I mean, did you buy Sonic 2 as soon as you? As soon as it came out on release?
I started the campaign to complain to my parents about not having it before they even made it.
Oh wow, that is.
You have to wait till birthdays or Christmases to get a game. That's pretty much like the law. You can't just go out and buy something.
Well,
you're like, hey,
that's true. To be fair, I had the same experience.
yeah. So you're like, hey,
I was gonna say I still do that, and I'm in my 20s.
like,
I can't just
hint,
buy a
there's a
game.
game coming out.
Yeah,
So-
It depends on when a game comes out. Like, if it comes out in the summer, then I'm like, no, I'm just gonna buy the game for myself. But if it's like close to Christmas, I'm like, I'm only gonna ask for like 2 or 3 things for Christmas. I might as well just ask for this game.
Yeah, it's funny because now I think Sonic is one of the few franchises where, like, I will buy the games. You know, you make the decision yourself, right? Like, I don't turn around and go, oh, maybe I should put this on my wish list and hope somebody picks. I'm like, no, I pre-ordered Mania day one when it was announced.
I still haven't.
I'm like,
pre-ordered
I'm
Mania.
tired of waiting. Collector's
I'm not-
edition.
I don't think I'm
saw
gonna
that and
pre-order
I kinda
Mania.
had to.
I mean, I
got so much money.
don't have much money right now, so I can't really do that.
Not me. I'm balling out of control.
And having money when it comes out is the problem. So all I gotta do is make enough money before it comes out, because otherwise I could have to sell the pre-order. But
Well, okay, moving on to Yoto. How did you first play Sonic 1? Or what do you think of it?
When I was a kid, I didn't even know what a Genesis was.
Fair enough.
Actually. So, my first experience with a lot of the classic games after Sonic 3 and Knuckles was actually Sonic Mega Collection Plus, because I was one of the kids who had a PlayStation 2 growing up rather than a GameCube. So, when they were releasing all the Genesis games, when they were, bringing all this stuff to, PlayStation and Xbox, it was my first time seeing a lot of these games, including like 3D Blast, and I don't actually recall getting too far into Sonic 1. And it's kind of interesting because when Generations came out, there's a little section at the beginning of the game where after you beat it, there's like a Genesis in the Sonic 1 world, which takes you through Sonic 1, and that's pretty cool. And when I saw that, I was like, I'm gonna finally beat Sonic 1. I'm older now, I'm good at Sonic, I can do this. I made it as far as the second stage, and I died. And I was like, you know what? No.
No.
Good old Marble Zone.
Marble Zone really is one of those. What is it called?
Questionable design choices.
I'll get it.
It's one of those. It's one of those things that just catches like plebs. It's just like
trap?
It's a casual filter.
Yeah, casual filter. That's what I was looking for.
I mean, I casual filter aside or not, I will still call Marble Zone one of the worst zones in any Sonic game ever. But like I said, I'll get more into that later.
Marble Zone is the worst second level of any Sonic game I've ever played. But,
do you think it could be the worst second level of all time?
All time, I don't necessarily think so. But
Cheaper men.
Well,
at the very least, among Sonic games, it's fucking
I mean, I think, relatively speaking, in terms of experience drop or letdown, so to speak,
it's a pretty bad second.
In a professionally made game and not something that's either super meme-worthy like Cheetah Man or something that's just super amateur, it is pretty much a harsh drop.
Yeah, like it'd be like if the second level of Mario was just completely opposite of the first stage. It's like, and now Mario has to, do precisely timed wall jumps.
well, to be fair, it's really the fourth stage because, zones. And actually, that's an interesting thing. Sonic 1's the only Sonic game which has 3 levels per zone, or acts,
Sonic CD kind of does, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and sorry, I almost forgot to do myself. My personal experience with Sonic 1. Well, I think I explained this last time to some degree. I had a friend who owned a Mega Drive, whose brother owned a Mega Drive, and on that I played Sonic 1. I don't really remember a huge amount about what I thought of the game. I think I liked it, and I certainly remember playing. Well, I mean, honestly,
I must have.
I must have. I suppose so. But I mean, I didn't think it was a bad game. I'm just trying to recall what I thought of it. I'm honestly just drawing a blank. I know it's not that long ago, at least compared to, say, Rick here, who's like 50 or something. I'm
there
joking,
at the Genesis of Sonic.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, from what I recall, I got to about that's Sonic 2. I think like most people, I enjoyed Sonic 2 more than I enjoyed Sonic 1, and certainly I think I would have gotten to about Spring Yard Zone and then moved on to Sonic 2. But certainly I remember playing it, and I certainly remember enjoying it to some degree, but truth be told, I probably spent more time playing Streets of Rage. Then, much like Yoto, I got Sonic Mega Collection Plus on PS2, where I played it really properly for the first time, and I also by that point knew a bit more about Sonic as a character and was generally more familiar with the franchise, so I had a bit more incentive to play it through, and I recall enjoying it. But again, because it wasn't, because I was playing it retrospectively, I probably I did have more enjoyment playing its sequel. So that's pretty much it, really. So, Simple, what was your first experience with Sonic 1?
Mega Collection. I think I played 2 before that one, but I remember playing through Green Hill Zone, and I was like, oh, this is cool, and then Marvel Zone was just hell. But, yeah. It wasn't for everyone.
That sounds like a common experience.
Yeah.
Wow, no wonder they keep remaking Green Hill Zone. It's the only good level in that game.
Hey, don't diss on Starlight Zone.
Nah.
Don't diss on Starlight Zone.
Exactly.
Yeah, Starlight. I love the
Starlight's
theme of
legit.
Starlight Zone.
I have actually never seen Starlight Zone.
Oh,
I've seen it, obviously, but I've never made it there, is what I mean.
Get good, scrub. Okay.
I'm sorry, I have to get through Labyrinth Zone to get there. Shut up.
I have
More
Labyrinth
specifically,
Zone
it's
is
Labyrinth
not
Zone
that
Act 3.
hard. It's really
Act
not
3.
that hard. It's just
Yeah,
tedious.
it's not. When you use save states.
Okay.
Which I'm doing
I'm
now.
sorry.
I always wanted
maybe-
to not do this.
Maybe
but
I'm just too good for you, gaming plebs.
Oh!
But it's really just, basic platforming with a slightly tanky character and
This is my
pushing
thing
blocks.
about. Okay,
We'll talk about that later.
I love when things roll on hills.
Anyway, Shroke, what was your first experience playing Sonic 1?
I think my first experience playing Sonic 1 was on the Sonic Mega Collection, but I never really played it much. In fact, I was actually more or less playing Sonic Adventure at the time.
I mean, what did you sort of think of it? What was your first impression?
Well, I thought it was pretty alright. I never really played much of it to get a good feel of what I was going in for. So,
I mean, what other Sonic games have you played before it? Just
before that, I was mostly playing the Adventure series. I had Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. I mean, I remember playing both of them, but I never really got to finishing them. I still have the games, though. I think I only have 2, though. I don't know whatever happened to the DX version.
Actually, I mean, that's an interesting point, really, because, for a few of us here, Sonic 1 was the first Sonic game we played. I mean, here's a question to those who for whom it wasn't the first Sonic game they played. What did you think of it coming to it? I'll just start with you, Shroke, as I was just been speaking to you.
I'm sorry, the question kind of skipped out for a second. My mic cut out.
Basically, I said, as a few of us, for some of us, playing Sonic 1 was our first experience playing Sonic, but for a few of us as well, it wasn't, and we'd played a Sonic game or two before that. So my question was, what did you think of Sonic 1 coming from another Sonic game, whatever that may have been?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. I know I never really played much of it. I guess it was pretty alright. I remember playing it with a friend once, but other than that, that was it. I didn't really get an experience out of it. I never really played the full thing.
Well, I mean, just thinking about it, in terms of graphics or gameplay, did you think, wow, this is very different, or this is just primitive, or whatever?
I kind of expected it to be a little bit different, but it's just looks pretty alright.
And
I played Sonic 3 before playing Sonic 1, so to me,
Same.
I already knew how to sort of play the classics. But what was strange to me, weirdly enough, was the lack of a spin dash and the sprites for Sonic looking really adorable, rather than the more 3D, cool looking Sonic in 3 Knuckles.
And
I
Blazy?
mean,
Yeah, like that was the main thing for me, is because the first mainline Sonic I had played was 3 before I had played Sonic 1. It kind of made Sonic 1 feel a little underwhelming in comparison. Not even necessarily just because of graphics, because I just really wasn't that worried about that at the time, but more so definitely the lack of spin dash, and as well as that, just generally how different the physics felt, because it did not feel anywhere near as organic as it does in 3 and Knuckles in 1, I don't feel like. And a large part of that has to do as well with the level design and whatnot of Sonic 1, which I keep bringing up. We'll get into that when it comes to that time in the podcast, because I have a lot to say in that regard.
I mean, my experiences in Sonic are kind of different from all of yours. Like, I knew about the classic series. I was just more or less started out on the adventure series and just kind of went from there, dropped it for a bit, then went back into it, and now here I am.
Yeah.
I started with Sonic 2, so yeah, the spin dash, the missing spin dash was of note, and looking up and down, that was like instantaneous, as opposed to like waiting for a minute. And it was really different in like terms of the level pacing, because like in Sonic 1, it's just like, oh, rolling down hills, it's just like blocks. But in like Sonic 2, it's like oh, green hills, and then purple water, and then you, Chemical Plant was the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
That was so terrifying as a kid.
Oh yeah,
it was.
It was stress-inducing. I always said, like, the drowning music is the most stress-inducing thing ever. Like, and I was like, in life, if I just started hearing that, I would just immediately
That used to be your alarm clock, man.
Oh,
You'd get out of bed.
I remember accidentally standing in the water too much in Station Square, and I just figured out, oh, that exists. I gotta get the fuck out of here.
No, Sonic's
like,
good.
I'm so used to, like, you know. Well, when I used to games like that, well, like Spyro was like my first game, and then there's like Mario, where, you know, water's like a non-issue. It's like, oh, there's water, sure, but who cares? It's, you know, you're a video game character, and Sonic's like, no, I'll drown. I can't live in water. And you're just like, oh,
that's a lot.
Well, it's better than Vice City.
Like,
I
everyone,
remember
like,
that.
underwater, and you hear that, boing,
Ba-bow.
because you know it's
Bum,
coming.
bum.
And then the music starts, and then you start shitting yourself.
Yeah.
They should have just brought back like the.
I mean, I didn't even
60
expect the
version
time. I was just
for
like,
3D games.
oh, shit.
They did not need to orchestrate it.
But
Yeah.
to answer your question, yeah, since my first experience with Sonic was on the Mega Collection, I do find myself comparing it a lot to the sequels. And because of that, I do have sort of a bias against it, because I feel like everything the sequels did well, Sonic 1 fails at. Sonic 1 almost feels like a proof of concept to me at this point, more than, like, you know, a
game.
solid game. Yeah.
Well,
like, I'm like, I can see the workings there, but
In terms of advertisement, that's kind of what it was, though.
yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, that's an interesting point, really, because moving on to a general review, well, I suppose we could save this till to Legacy and, you know, comparing it to its peers. So, as a general question to everybody, I mean, how do you say it plays, and what do you feel about it?
You mean Sonic 1, right?
Yeah, obviously. No, we're talking about Sonic 4.
We're talking about Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
No, I thought
You go spin.
No,
And your list
Bubsy
is
3D. Go out. Another reminder to go out and pre-order Sonic Forces today.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. Another time. We'll get to that bridge when we get to it. Yeah. I mean,
I thought that Sonic 1 felt rather janky, like, and a bit unpolished for if you were to compare it to its future installments, which is kind of unfair to sort of do, but on its own, I think there's elements in it which I think for the time would have been quite mind blowing, which is something that only occurred to me recently. But yeah, if you were to if standing on its own, it's quite solid as an experience. But there's a lot of sort of problems and little unpolished bits that I think stand out more over time.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's the problem with it overall, is that because it's the first in the series, and because so many games have come out since then, we tend to compare it negatively. But I'm just try to look at it purely on its own merits, I'd say.
Yeah.
For this part of the
like if I will speak, kindly to Sonic 1, I will say that Sonic 1 still has Sonic 1, if you were just looking at it objectively, does control exactly like every later Sonic game as well. Simply and it's a good way. It controls, well. It just doesn't have things that, we may be accustomed to that the later games have that made them more worthwhile than one. In terms of just movement, it doesn't feel... Yeah, it feels like it's good movement. It's good, solid movement, and it's very intuitive, like we were saying earlier. So I do want to say that before I start getting into all the things I do not like about this game.
I do want to go ahead and interject as well that especially if we look at the time period at which the game itself had come out, this was absolutely mind blowing. It was very, very rare to see a game moving at this fast a clip, having handling this much going on screen. I mean, there were a few games that had shortly before this had tried to handle actually somewhat similar ideas of physics and momentum when it comes to platforming, and not just necessarily momentum in, say, the Mario sense of, oh, hey, there's a run button, but actually integrating, organic curves and whatnot into the level design. The biggest example of this that I can think of being 1989's Strider by Capcom. Actually, absolutely worth a play if you've never played it, because, specifically arcade version, I should say, because you actually can see a lot of those similarities when you come into it from that mindset.
Well, actually, sorry, just to interrupt, for British, members and people who played on the PAL versions, Rick, when you first played Sonic 1, obviously you played the PAL version, which would have been slightly slower than the US versions. I don't remember how much, but...
By whatever 10 hertz means in seconds.
Exactly, run. But, when you played something like Sonic Mega Collection or whatever, did that feel very odd? Sort of...
When I came back to it afterwards, it did seem different, but I couldn't quite place what it was. So, it was a long time since I played 1 originally on the Mega Drive, and then when I came to play it on different consoles years later, I assumed it was just me getting worse. But until, because at the time I had no idea that, we'd been slowed down. So when I did come to play other versions that were, full speed, it was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm just, mistiming all my jumps and stuff. And when I found out that was why, I was vindicated, and I was like, I knew I wasn't terrible. I knew it was the game, but not me.
Yeah. For once, it was
Am I messing up? Fault. No, it is the game that was wrong.
There's something insanely, unfair, I think, when you're a little kid and you're seeing all these, world records and speed running things, and they're like, yeah, this, the world's, you can enter this contest, just beat Green Hill in this time, and you could not do it no matter what you tried, and you were like, man, what am I missing?
And then you're like,
fucking contest for kids with a faster copy of the game.
I don't personally remember it, but what was the music difference like? Was the music slower as well? Because I remember it was slightly slower. I think.
Visible, I'd say though. Don't forget, you'd be playing this 10 years before you'd be able to viably hear a difference, unless you saw it in a movie or something, right?
Yeah,
so to us, we wouldn't see the other version of it.
So
by the time you do come across it,
yeah, there must be a YouTube comparison, because I kind of remember, or at least I think I remember it sort of the music being do 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 do.
Marble Zone is making a slow song slower, right?
Marble Zone is just music to watch girls by, by Andy Williams.
It should be slow music for a slow stage. Just my
second stage, but
it's bad music for a bad stage.
Yeah, it's not bad music.
I love the Marble Zone theme. Actually, I'm just being a jerk.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a good
Blazy,
composition.
Sorry
Anyways,
to break off on that tangent there, but Blazy, you said you had a lot to say about
If I
this.
can interject, like I never really preferred like the Sonic 1 like to 2 to 3 soundtracks. Honestly, I've been just more hooked on the adventure soundtracks because they all sounded like so awesome and stuff like that.
That's because they're on CDs, mate.
Don't show off, don't criticize.
You just don't like chip, you just don't appreciate the old-fashioned chip tune, and you gotta love that Genesis like sound chip.
The Genesis sounds amazing.
Okay, Grandpa.
I'm just saying.
I barely ever played the games, but now that you're talking about it, I'm kind of feeling about digging about my either my Wii or my GameCube, hooking up like Sonic Mega Collections, and I'm thinking about like giving that another shot and seeing where like I left off.
Yeah, we should all get back and do that at some point.
I know I have an old collection of games. I know I have an old collection of games somewhere. But
I'm
enough of that.
slugging my way through Marvel Zone as we speak.
I was gonna say I'm on.
Guys, Blazy wants to talk. Please.
It's fine. Like these discussions get chaotic by nature.
They go very fast by nature.
Unless they're in the UK, in which case they go about 10% slower.
Also, just before we move on to the next thing, going on about how this game looked and played when it first came out, I got to admit, right, like as you were saying, mind-blowing was actually the exact phrase I was going to use when it came to when the first game hit. And just because I went through one, it reminded me that the special stages were actually like crazily impressive when they first came out. Like looking at them now, some people find them a bit nauseating because you're constantly rotating and there's giant holographic fish and junk in the background, but like, there was nothing at that time that looked anything like that on a home console that ran at that speed.
They're the reason.
No,
I'm just
Blast processing.
Show off, right? And it was to say, hey, look what we can do. Even coming down to stuff like, as soon as you start Green Hill, the ground is not level, and it's very intentional that even though there's only small bumps and rises and lowers in the floor, it's done intentionally to be like, hey, Mario was all straight lines and bricks and blocks. Like, this isn't.
Yeah.
That's why half of the badniks are all round and all have, like, circular shapes and designs. Like, it is almost impossible to discuss the first game without its comparison to Mario. It's done so intentionally.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you're the perfect candidate for that, because, as I said, Mario's your first game, then you moved on to Sonic, and it's like, screw you, Lou Albano. You've got Sonic Merkel now. Okay, Blazy.
We get Jaleel White instead.
Okay.
Just kicks little bounce.
Can we please get to Blazy, because he wants to say something.
What I had been just saying was, I guess, to go back to it, it was huge at the time. Obviously, like I said, done a lot that had not been done before. Other games had tried similar things, but never quite as well as how well Sonic 1 nailed it. There's a reason this game was the launch point for the blast processing ad campaign. In general, like, the whole thing was just, it's very, very easy to understate the impact that the game had at the time, especially when we do look back at it in comparison to 2 and 3. That certainly doesn't mean it didn't have its flaws, because it most certainly did, but they weren't quite so noticeable at the time, I feel.
Making this the pack-in game was literally, like, the strongest move I think they made in the
replace it. We needed something better than Altered Beast, I'll say that much right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Altered Beast isn't bad, it's just, it's not Sonic the Hedgehog.
Kalinsky was a smart man.
You just said the Altered Beast isn't bad, but it isn't the best. But is it fast?
It doesn't
it's
fast,
not
so
fast.
it's not fast. I don't know.
And that's really when you get down to it, that's what actually set the Genesis apart from the SNES, was processing speed as well as the sound chip. Although Nintendo certainly tried to, and although Nintendo was still in the end able to win the technology arms race thanks to packing in chips with their cartridges, such as the Super FX chip with stuff like Star Fox, or some admittedly groundbreaking technology at the time as well, such as Mode 7 with F-Zero and Super Castlevania 4.
And don't forget,
what happened to Mode
Donkey Kong Mode 7?
I don't remember if Donkey Kong Country was Mode 7 or
I don't
not.
think it was.
I think it was I know there were full 3D models,
There
but I
was
couldn't remember.
Mode 7, there was the minecart levels.
It was just pre-rendered sprite, right?
They were pre-rendered models that were used as sprites, but yeah, I think Mode 7 was used for the minecart levels.
Yeah, I remember.
Either way, like, it's like it was like, I mean, there was always that rivalry to begin with, but when you realize that it was really Sonic 1 more than anything else that started the Nintendo Sega arms race,
Yeah.
that's when it really puts into perspective just how absolutely important this game was.
It's so crazy to just think about that being like the mentality, because that doesn't really exist anymore. There's no like game companies that are really at each other's necks like that anymore.
Well, at that time, it was because Nintendo was basically the only game in town, right? Like, Sonic 1 was the bullet.
Yeah, they had a monopoly
on
on
Nintendo's
Not
chest.
really. Like, if anything, it was, like, at the time, in that regard, it was more region-specific. Like, for example, Sega, with the Master System, actually had a huge foothold, I know for a fact, in Brazil and South America.
Well, I think we're talking, like, pre-Sega.
Oh, like, I mean, Sega had always been there, because the Master System was a thing. And there were predecessors to the Master System as well. They just weren't nearly as big.
The Master System around when the NES was?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so was the Mark... Was it the Mark II or the Mark III at that time?
Yeah.
I believe it was I forget which one it was, but yeah, no, Sega was always there. They just had never risen to the level of prominence we know them with until the 16-bit era. Yeah, in the US.
Always there.
And I was going to say, and the arcades for sure, absolutely, because like, oh my god, games like Afterburner and Golden Axe. I was about to say as well, wasn't the Master System more popular in Europe?
Yeah, it was. But really, Europe was more focused on home computers and, you know, ZX Spectrums, Commodores, and all the rest of it. But, you know, there were some. But let's talk about the graphics for a second. Obviously, at the time, it looked very impressive because, as Rick said, you know, it was very different from, or rather, it was a huge upgrade from Mario and NES games. Certainly, that 16-bit, you know, home. Sorry,
actually, I would actually kind of say it's a little unfair to compare Sonic 1 to Mario 1 in that regard, because there is that hardware gap, and because although the Genesis was 16-bit hardware, it is worth noting that Sonic 1 did come out almost either very, very close to, it was like right before or right after the launch of the SNES. So at that point, if you're talking on a technology standpoint, the better contemporary, if you will, would absolutely have to be Super Mario World.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's.
I mean, even comparing those.
Shall we just move away from comparison and just look at the graphic? Okay. Look at the graphics in terms of, you know, on its own merit. So, I mean, let's think about the graphics for a second. So, what do we think of level design and sprites? I mean, certainly, I really like the Sonic 1 sprites. I mean, my favourite sprite is probably when he screeches to a halt and he just looks at the camera. I know, he's just really sweet, actually, in that game.
What do you see, boy?
Yeah, Sonic has a lot of really fun animations in the early Genesis games. I mean, of course, there's the infinite miss, like, you know, waiting, kind of tapping his foot thing.
I'm out of here.
I've always loved that.
CD, but...
I know.
Yeah.
But
I've always loved that because, you know, Sonic's whole gimmick is that he's going fast, and so, like, it makes sense that, like, he would be really impatient if the player isn't making him move. He's like, hey, man, what you waiting for?
Like, that's one thing that's absolutely worth noting as well, is just how much, like, how key personality in general was to Sonic's appeal, and as well as part of what made Sonic 1 stand out, because they did a lot to make Sonic very, very animated in Sonic 1, especially more so than like a lot of other games at the time and everything. And that's what made that's another thing that made like the sprite work and whatnot in general pop so much, along with like the excellent use of the Genesis's palette.
Well, Sonic's design's just, I mean, we can talk about that in another podcast, but Sonic's design is really iconic in its simplicity and its attitude. So it's almost an oxymoron. It's both classic and contemporary. You know, it's classic and snarky. Yeah.
Yeah. He takes over that after that, like, sort of Felix the Cat or old Disney sort of style.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciated in the sprite work of the original is when you would go up to the edge, he would do like an animation of him like trying to balance himself.
Yeah, I love that one. He's just such, and of course the great thing is if you do it's different depending on which way you're facing the edge. So
yeah, it's a little extra thing that didn't need to be in there, and it doesn't really even add anything to gameplay. It's just nice. It's just a nice little animation.
It makes Sonic more human than the human plumber.
Yeah, I was going to say
wasn't there another animation when he went supersonic instead of him just toppling over the edge?
Supersonic was not in Sonic 1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There are only 6 Chaos Emeralds in this game.
That's we can talk about that. I mean, when talk about special stages, but yes, I mean, I just love how his sprite work just makes him look very cartoony. Yeah. I mean, I've always seen Sonic as a classic cartoon character, and that's probably why I like Adventure Sonic Hedgehog so much, because it really embraces that idea. I mean, level designs now. So, I mean, everybody talks about Green Hill Zone, which I just love how lush and verdant. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Verdant, I think.
Verdant, yeah, Verdant. That's it.
No, it's Verdant, I think.
Verdant.
Viridian City.
Viridian.
The palette for the game itself is actually quite nice, bar Scrap Brain Zone and such. A lot of the games are very colourful and bright, which I quite liked about it, and it's sort of almost pastel-y in a slight way.
Yeah. I rather like. I mean, talking about sort of general graphical features, I always liked the not the loop-de-loops, but the twirly things. I forget what they're called. Isn't there a name for them? Those sort of
corkscrews.
Corkscrews. I always loved those. Those are just really impressive.
I think they're only in 2.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to say,
3, I think.
Sorry, sometimes it's hard to remember all these. And of course, the checkerboard ground, which was basically added to
help improve a sense of speed.
What?
To help improve a sense of speed.
Oh, I thought it was just to make it more interesting, rather than.
I thought it was mainly there to help provide more of a sense of movement, of just seeing all of that going.
I never really thought about it like that, but that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Reading Console Wars, I read a bit of Console Wars. I haven't finished it yet. It said that they did that so it would feel like a race cut, like you would get in a race checkerboard mood.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's obviously that graphics and
yeah.
So
I was going to say that
yeah.
What's it called? When you were even though we're comparing them, when we were talking about how Sonic looks and behaves, it reminded me of reading I was reading a thing about Mario. It was old Nintendo kind of thing. Mario is very playful and he's very curious. So this is how I should do. And I was just thinking to myself about how all of this stuff about Mario, if you told it to me, I'd be like, I can assume he's like that, but I would never immediately think Mario super playful and curious. With Sonic, even though he's just a game character, I immediately can understand what his personality's like. Yeah.
It's all the matter of show, not tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even in more recent Mario games, I just don't really get much personality out of him, and I suppose that's part of his selling point and his strength.
Something soulless corporate mascot.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, but no, we're not. I'm sure a lot. We like Mario. I mean, I love.
I like some of the games, but I've just never really been that big of a fan of the franchise.
Yeah, it's all right. But moving back to Sonic again. So
there's a reason Mario doesn't have a 25-year-old long-running comic series where he actually does stuff.
Because Nintendo's too allowed to do it.
That.
Mario has had several comics, but
none of them are running.
Let's not forget the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which, just to go off on a massive tangent, I really like how Deke and the Nintendo of America just made him into a sort of Brooklyn Plumber type, because I think that just gave him a lot more personality and interest.
I was actually reading about like the initial like voice actor thing, and apparently like while he was doing his part for Mario, they told him like, hey, try to sound like sort of a Italian plumber kind of guy, and he was saying like, this is a cool voice, but shouldn't we do something that's a bit more kid-friendly so that, he's more friendly? And I don't disagree with that decision. I think Mario's voice is perfect for him.
I didn't know. I just think I just prefer Lua Banner's like, oh, Mario, what are we going to do? Luigi,
Because they sound like real people.
Yeah.
Hey, Luigi, did our tax returns come in?
Like,
No, Mario.
Hey, Luigi, it's Roddy Piper. Oh, yeah.
no, Yoshi, not Luigi.
Does anybody else think it's a bit odd that out of the two of them, Mario is the one that sounds more like Mickey Mouse in general when he appears?
Yeah, Sonic has never had like a Mickey Mousey kind of voice, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, but Mario does.
As a new mess.
Yeah.
But hey, that's complaints from 2012. Not 12, like 14.
Sorry, we just went on a massive tangent there. So, I mean, special stages. Sonic 1, I personally quite like them because I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of. Well, I can tolerate the.
I can tolerate. I just love how I kept going down.
The half pipes.
The half pipes, I just think that A, they're overused, and B, they're overused. But I just really like
half pipes are fun because half pipes don't rely on any cognitive ability. It's almost all memorization.
Yeah, that's what I like. Actually, that's what I like about the Sonic 1 special stages, is because you need to have some cognitive ability, and while there is that sort of random element of you're rotating and you don't quite know what's below you, I just like how, and actually it works for Sonic because Sonic's very much based on pinball physics, and that feels like a pinball game or a bagatelle game where
It's the nail right on the head.
What?
I said you're hitting the nail right on the head right now.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I think that the Sonic 1 special stages are very, very underrated.
Yeah.
I want to
say another thing about it is that I've always liked is the way that everything is spinning. It always kind of gave me the impression that this is just Sonic's perspective. Like, Sonic's always rolling into balls and stuff.
He's on speed.
Yeah.
It's always high. I'm looking at like weird.
dolphin.
That's why he goes so fast. His blood pressure is always so high.
He's always hiding from the animals.
The other one other thing I'd like to go ahead and point out really briefly is, especially out of the Genesis games as well, that the Sonic 1 special stages were actually the only ones to actually embrace the physics and gameplay mechanics, if you will, from the core game. Because everything else is basically a completely separate minigame that uses nothing else. But here it's basically still the exact same controls, just no running.
Yeah.
And so it feels more cohesive, I guess you could say.
Like it, but
you can make arguments for how.
And I will be remiss if I didn't mention that those stages do make a comeback in Sonic 3, just not as the special stage.
I think.
They also make something of a comeback in Sonic 4, but of course there it's ruined by the fact that
it's Sonic 4.
No. By the fact that you don't actually control. Well, no, you do control the tilt, which I suppose it gives a different spin on it, and I can respect that. But
unintended, I assume.
It's the Dark Souls kind of, hey, it's your fault if you lose.
I don't know. As I said, I just like Sonic 1 special stages a lot, and I think they really should try and bring them back.
I don't think they should bring them back because there's something so uniquely that time. I feel like it's more like something I want them to think about Sonic in that sort of context more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I mean, I just think that
page out of that
we always rehash the half pipe, semicircle, semi-cylinder, whatever you want to call it.
And never Blue Sphere.
And yeah, well, Blue Sphere as well, but I
Blue
mean,
Sphere's good though.
yeah, Blue Sphere's alright.
Blue Sphere sucks compared to One.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Blue Sphere is still my favorite special stage.
I'm
but
sorry,
I'm a bit
I still
biased.
would say Sonic's one special stage is my favourite.
My only personal gripe with the Sonic 1 special stages is, although you've got like, hell.
I was gonna say, I also feel like, Sonic 1
Garaco
special stages, I'm a little bit biased too because there's no incentive.
Yeah.
Like, if you do a special stage, you're like, cool, I did it. Back to the game. Like,
you
with
got a
Sonic
special
2
ending.
and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you have the incentive that you can get supersonic and gameplay changes. And Sonic 1, it was literally just a way to get extra points and maybe an extra life.
And an alternate ending of about 3 frames of animation.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, man.
Yeah. Well, back then it was, again.
Well, you got a different ending screen too, right? So they did try something. Like, obviously they're going to expand on it in later games, but I mean, you did get like a slightly different ending, extra animation. Like, it was just something cool to say you'd done.
So, sound effects, music.
I was actually going to bring that up earlier, and I'm glad you did. I think that, despite all my problems, Sonic 1 has amazing music. Sonic has always had great music, but one thing I really love about Sonic's music is how well... What's the word I'm looking for? Everything is very well composed, and it fits the area, but it also feels just a little bit funky to it. Something about early Genesis music always kind of gave me very funky kind of vibe.
Yeah. I always like that sort of bass sound that the Genesis sound chip has. It's always been a, dun 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 do 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 do. Yeah.
Genesis chip has a lot of good crunch to it.
Yeah. And also that sort of boing, that farting sound effect.
The ring sound effect is not.
Yeah, I was gonna say that ring sound effect is so iconic that like anytime I'm anywhere and I can hear it, I just immediately because a lot of people use that as like their text message alert, and I'll hear it immediately.
In my experience, I've had a lot of cashiers that use that sound or the Mario point sound.
Yeah. And like
Inside stack. Are you real?
Either that or the MGS codex noise.
That used to be on my Skype call thing for like a really long time. I had that as my Skype call. It was the codec call. And when my computer reset, I don't have that anymore, and it makes me sad because I really liked having that.
So we talked about control, sort of. Talked about graphics.
Yeah, the music. The music is very good.
Yeah, the
Sound
music's
effects are
great.
good.
Oh, and like we were saying earlier, that the drowning theme is stress-inducing to this day.
Oh yeah.
The greatest alarm clock you'll ever
it kind of
have.
gives you that. Oh,
I love it when you get the invincibility box.
What would you say? Oh yeah, well, actually the invincibility theme. That's something which you don't really get to talk about.
Yeah. Isn't it a remix of the theme of the game?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
remix of
yeah.
the title theme.
So it's a bit like
I like it when the games do that. It kind of bugs me sometimes when like a Sonic game will just reuse that invincibility theme, and I'm like, that's not why the invincibility theme was good, game. You're just using that because Sonic 1 did it, but Sonic 1 did it because that was the theme song to the game, just like how Sonic 3's invincibility music was the theme to the game.
I mean,
More often than now, doesn't that just get reused as sort of like the end boss theme though? Like for the final, they bring back the opening title sequence for the final boss fight kind of thing to tie it all off, rather than just make it the general invincibility theme to give you the same kind of vibe.
Yoto did it.
Also, doesn't the when you complete a stage, it's different for Sonic 1 than the later games.
Yeah, it is. It's a different
Later
thing.
games use Sonic 3, I believe.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about that because it occurred to me that it's different between each game, or rather, they kept using the one they used in Sonic 3 or Sonic 2 ever since, and we never really went back to what did they have in Sonic 1? I like. Because I know that
It was like
oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I like the little like point sound effects.
Oh yeah, I love those.
It's just hearing all your score rack up, and then you get sometimes you get the continuing like do 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 do.
Oh, and of course, you know the Sega at the start.
Yeah. 1/8 of the cartridge.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it when like one of the things I really love about the menu theme, like the title screen song, is how it starts up with that like that little beat that, and then it goes. Yeah,
it goes right into it. Yeah, just like the little startup.
Yeah, it triggers like some endorphins in my brain.
I was gonna say, yeah, and I do kind of like how there's, like there's a bit of a build up, like it shows the Sega logo and then it shows thing. I don't know, I like it.
It was kind of cinematic for the time, just the small touches.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the intro up to the game. I mean, just having Sonic appear in that sort of MGM logo again. To compare to other games, usually you just had a title screen with, Super Mario Brothers 1 or 2 player, but there you just have this picture of the main character sitting in an MGM line.
Fully animated, by the way.
Fully animated, waving his finger with that little...
Not the way Mania does it.
You know what I think that is more so than MGM? I think they kind of swiped that from Dr. Slump.
Dr. Slump.
Actually, I could see that. I could very well see that.
That seems quite similar.
Like one of my favorite Sega intro screens is the CD one, where Sonic just does something very suggestive with his finger after wiggling it.
What?
Oh.
Like he shakes, he wiggles his finger, and then just sparkles come out.
Yeah, but that's not.
You can't do that.
That's like what, Michael Jackson then? Michael.
I like how
Nobody played
part of the
Michael
design,
Jackson,
though, right? Wasn't it?
The magic year of '93.
Anyway, what was I about to say? Sorry. Well, so what's your favourite level theme bit of music from Sonic 1 then?
Starlight.
Just going round. Blazy?
Starlight. I absolutely adore that song so much.
Garaco?
I really don't know. Like, I can't pick favorites. I love each one for its different reasons, especially when remixed. Like, I've heard T-Lopes' remixes of them, and it really gives them a nice theme, and that's how I like to picture them. Like, Starlight Zone is really good, but also I kind of like Labyrinth Zone's theme, despite me really hating that level. I don't know. I love all of them.
And Rick?
Green Hill, when it first came out, 20 years later, it's got to go to Starlight. And the Dreams Come True song that, I can't remember if it was based on Green Hill or the other way around, Marry Me, is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, Green Hill was my jam when I was a kid, and then after 14 versions of this stage, and a million rehashes and remixes and everything else, Starlight takes it just because it's not as overplayed.
And
they're all good songs, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think the two themes that stood out the most were Starlight and Green Hill. If I had to choose one, I'd honestly think it'd be Starlight.
Yeah, that seems to be the favourite. Simple.
Yeah, Starlight and hold on. No, hold on. Springyard
and Green Hill.
Yeah, Springyard's good. Yeah.
Springyard. Okay, I could see it as Springyard. Yeah.
Stage is also good.
Yeah, myself. I've honestly just always liked I suppose it's cheating a bit, but the introduction theme, because no, that's Sonic 2, isn't it?
You're saying this because of Adventures, aren't you?
Yeah, well, it's a good theme though. I mean, I just think it's catchy, and because it's short and it's simple. I suppose.
Hey,
what?
You say
short and simple.
But yeah, I'd say yes. Starlight Zone is just really quite beautiful. Green Hill Zone, even if it might be overused, it is overused for a reason. That's because it's really good. the perfect way to get you in the mood of the game, fast-paced, and actually, what's it called again? Marble Zone. That's, again, I just quite like that one because it's quite steady.
It sounds like a Russian polka to me.
Well, it sounds like, as I said this once and I said this again, it sounds like music to watch girls by. Yeah, I'm sorry. Am I the only person who's actually heard that song?
No, I just like making you sweat by not replying.
Especially with a name like that.
Yeah.
The girls watch the boys, one of the girls watch the boys who watch the girls go by.
I also used to, I used to really hate Labyrinth, but I think it's because I associate that song with the stage. But when I actually listen to the song outside of playing through Labyrinth, I actually really like that track. It's really chill.
Yeah.
Right, this is a question I've wanted to ask people for ages, but when you listen to music on the radio, do you ever hear like songs that remind you of Sonic or make you think this sounds like something from a Sonic game? Because I get that so often.
I think that's
Live
a lot.
Wire from Motley Crue.
You know, there's a Janet Jackson song that doesn't often remind me of a Master System Sonic song. Now that you mention it.
I was gonna say it's kind of interesting. When I was listening to the band Delight recently, not like it sounds like any particular Sonic game, but when I heard it, I just thought like everything that Delight makes sounds like it could be a song in Sonic R.
I haven't really necessarily heard it with songs on the radio, but I've had a few cases here and there from songs from unrelated games.
Live Wire by Motley Crue. That's like something straight out of Adventure or something.
I mean, I don't know any specific songs, but usually the genre that reminds me most is 90s disco.
Yeah.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was Delight.
Yeah,
Yoto?
I don't know. Like art.
Sorry, what's your favourite theme or stage theme?
It's probably what's it called? It's probably
Stage.
Labyrinth.
Song.
I mean, not Labyrinth. I'm sorry,
Marble.
Marble. Marble's probably my favorite, like hands down. I love that song, and I hate that stage.
Ironic. Well, unfortunately, Yoto's dropped out for now, so we'll carry on without him, I'm afraid. Let's
Sounds
talk.
like a big Waffle House in the sky.
My
Yes.
favorite place to go.
Anyway, let's talk about level design now. So,
Alright, so the big thing I have to say outright with this game, when it comes to level design and overall pacing of the game, what the f*** were they on? Like,
Speed.
no, you would think with a game like this, but it's so stupidly bipolar because it seems to go in almost a set pattern: a fun stage and then a not fun stage, a fun stage and then a not fun stage. Because
Bird
Green Hill is
Control?
great, Marble is shit, Spring Yard is great, Labyrinth is awful, Starlight, amazing, and that's the less said about Scrap Bane, the better.
okay.
So do you think they just got two guys to design all the stages and they went, right, you get three, you get three, and then we just do one and then the other?
Do,
The guy who designed all the other three just.
do you
Wasn't
think
it
that
just
it
a
was?
designer?
Sorry, Garaco?
I was gonna say, wasn't Izuka like the level designer for Sonic 1, or was that someone else?
He was a senior game designer on Sonic 3, and that was his first role in the series.
Ah, okay. I thought he was on Sonic 1. I thought he was a bit earlier than that, but
Yeah.
He was not part of the Sonic 1 part of the Sonic 1 Sonic team, and if he was, and he still can't get somebody that can get the classic games right, shame on him.
Yeah. Well, what was I about to say? Do you think that's just because the reason why is they felt that just having a game go fast all the time would get, I guess, go by too quick?
I mean, I guess you could say that, especially because this was also back at a time when, arguably, where this was an actual concern, where game rentals were a thing. And so you actually saw this rather frequently, where sometimes the American versions of games would be actually made harder at the time, specifically to deal with the rental market and to encourage people to actually buy the game itself.
How long did that last, huh?
But it's like I don't like. It's the problem is I guess it was probably like I would say they wouldn't necessarily be too worried about a fast game, especially because I mean Sega has almost as much of, if not more, of a history in arcades than they even do home consoles. They understand how to make a short game work. It's just the issue with these slower stages isn't necessarily so much that they're slower, so much as they just completely abandon. Well, each one, for the most part, each one of them, I guess with the possible exception of Scrap Brain, pretty much completely abandon everything about what makes the game work. For every zone that you have, like Green Hill or Starlight, that embraces the physics and the way the game handles, you have something like Marble that contrasts it by going right back to exactly what every other platformer did.
Well, do you
And
think
that's
that
why
might
those
be
zones don't
do
work.
you think that might be it? It's
Yeah,
just
something like-
they're trying. We want to be different, but we don't want to be too different and so alienate people, I guess. Or, they're thinking to themselves, guys will want to play a more traditional platformer as we know it.
It could be a way of hedging their bets.
Yeah,
And just
exactly.
making sure
I
that,
guess
say
I
for
can
example,
see
you have like
that.
fun stages interspersed with stages that aren't too easy, because maybe they thought it was too easy to roll through stuff like Starlight and Green Hill.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a point, because actually, when you think about it, that can segue us on to the next point, but the next sort of section. But going back, that's interesting because we're going, fast, slow. It's a bit like the Werehog when you think about it.
Oh boy.
Werehog stage.
Yeah.
I mean, in essence, that sort of duality has really kind of existed in almost every single Sonic game when you really sit back and look at it. But I feel like a lot of other games, most notably the rest of the Genesis series, handled the contrast far better and made it feel more organic. Because if we're just going to compare, for example, water levels, Chemical Plant was handled so much better than Labyrinth was.
There's a good comparison there as well. Say between Green Hill and Marble, where it's kind of fast versus slow, and then you contrast that with Sonic 2, where you go from Emerald, which is kind of fast, to Chemical, which goes even faster in points, other than slowing you down.
Well, the great thing
It's
about
like, they're like, hey, there's a bit of water in this one, but if you're clever, you can avoid it, and we'll reward you at the beginning by letting you go real fast, and then if you get to the water, we're going to slow you down there instead.
But what I was about to say is that you can't just have
Welcome back,
fast,
Yoto.
fast. You need a bit of. I think you need something to take you, to slow you down, take a break, take a breather,
Right.
and then
like
speed
it is
up again. Otherwise, you're just. It's like eating a whole bunch of sugar. You have to have a bit of cake with it.
Can't have too much fun.
Well, no.
I get it, right?
You wouldn't
Like, it's
just,
a way
you
of
wouldn't just
parsing it
eat
out.
a bowl of sugar.
Says who?
Says anybody with taste. You
Oh,
you wouldn't just eat icing. You need to have a cake. You need to have the balance. of
Ever a
it.
child?
Yes. Yes, I've eaten sugar cubes in my time, but you gotta. You have to have the ensemble.
I think the
because it
problem-
complements each other. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think the problem though was after Green Hill Zone was meant to be, you're blasting through. There's no stopping. You just keep going. Then Marble Zone hits you like a brick because the first two stages of the game pretty much drills into you. You're meant to go fast. So when you hit Marble Zone and rolling down the first slope just throws you into a lava pit. It really betrays you, and that's something that one did a lot to me. Where there's a slope, there's rings. I'm gonna jump down and roll down this trail of rings and go straight into a spiked wall or something.
Marble Zone gave me trust issues.
It's that kind of relationship.
I mean, Sonic's always been a love-hate
And it
relationship.
was all fun and games, and then it was lava and waiting and bricks.
And water.
And just surfing on the block, waiting for it to reach the other side, because interactivity.
I mean, don't you think
Spiky
it's just
chandeliers
it's more
dropped on them.
tedious than it is, difficult?
Oh, that absolutely is the biggest part of the problem. It's just the biggest challenge with Marble is not getting bored and trying to go too fast and getting yourself killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, you got to remember the target audience, right? Like, they probably thought this was for really young kids.
Well,
I don't remember if I don't know if they
I
would
think
necessarily
Sonic was
thought for
always
younger
at slightly
kids.
older kids.
I mean,
despite its colourfulness.
Genesis in general.
Yeah, the Genesis
Well, I
actually
mean,
was
generally,
always aimed at a older child, young teen market, specifically because they want the whole thing with Sonic was to try to avoid being the family-friendly Mario. That was that goes back to the whole thing of him having a bigger sense of attitude and basically being the '90s in a character.
Yeah, Poochie.
Sonic was
Hedgehog.
more of a demographic. Funny enough.
Yeah.
Because, you
It was
wanted
Sonic
to
the
be...
Hedgehog.
He's always been edgy. Shadow the Hedgehog did nothing wrong.
So, obviously, Sonic 1 introduced us to Sonic the Hedgehog. It also introduces us to Dr. Eggman / Dr. Robotnik / Mustachio Face.
Right, Baldy McNose.
Yeah, whatever.
Baldy McNose hair.
I know, I'm just... whatever.
It was a great time before
bosses.
Baldy McNose hair.
Yeah, well,
The time before, yes.
Charles Bronson, the fat guy with the big bushy moustache.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Charles Bronson. Circa
James
Strongman.
First of all, can I just say,
Yes?
Labyrinth Zone's boss can go die in a fire.
Okay, but can we just talk? Let's just introduce ourselves to the boss topic here. So let's talk about bosses now. What's your favourite boss in the game?
That's actually a tough one. I'm really not sure which one I like the most.
I think Springyard.
Springyard Starlight.
I'm gonna say Starlight just because you get to use
what's
the
happened in
physics.
Springyard?
I can't remember actually which ones were which now.
Springyard is the guy with the spike who drops down and pulls all the floor out.
Yeah, he does.
Oh no, that was horrible.
And
that one.
Starlight is the one where he drops spike balls and you get to either bounce them or throw them at him.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's one I liked. That one was really creative in comparison to the others.
Yeah, I like that one.
Wait till he moves into position, then jump on him.
Yeah, like Starlight in general was probably one of the best zones for taking advantage of the general sort of pinball physics in an almost more puzzle-esque fashion.
Yeah.
It worked really, really well with just about everything with the way the zone worked, including the boss. And then meanwhile, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have things like, well, the final boss of the game.
Which is
Yeah.
basically just jump into tubes.
Which is slow down, stop, and by the way, you don't have any rings, not that it matters, because you will crush you to death in one hit anyway.
Okay, to be
Right.
fair though, it's not as bad as the Labyrinth Zone boss.
Oh god,
Oh, no.
I wouldn't have problems with the Labyrinth Zone boss in concept if it wasn't just such a cluster to play.
Yeah,
Like, that is probably
It's a
the single
bottleneck.
hardest part of the game itself right there.
It's
Well,
not
the
a
boss is
boss, it's a
Bottom's
master,
Pit.
of course.
And the drowning.
Yeah, you'd have to avoid spikes and bullets when you're dealing with water physics, which make you feel like you're running in tar. It's just horrible.
Ow. Or you let him get away, and you try and take it slowly, in which case the game's like, see, we made it easy mode for you. Now it's just drowning and spikes and, bullets.
But they barely even have any air bubbles.
That's because they hate you.
Yeah.
And you called it easy mode!
Well, it's easier than chasing them up and trying to hit them at the same time. Imagine if that was mandatory and you failed if you didn't kill him on the way up.
I don't
Oh,
think you even
God.
had to hit him.
Boss.
I think hitting him was just suicide. You hit him, okay, bounce back into the spike and bullet that happens to be firing at exactly the same time.
And the spike glitch was not helpful.
Yeah, it's funny that boss, you need to know the physics better for that boss than I think any other point in the game in order to not be thrown down to the bottom and drown or into something and killed. Like, I don't understand why that was not the final boss.
Actually, that would have made it for a far more memorable final boss than the actual final boss of the game.
Actually, it would make more sense as well than, him running away and being faster than you.
If you were to reskin it as like a
the final boss of Sonic 1, water.
It's just chaos.
Yeah.
That is a lot better than Dr. Robotnik's Pancake Factory.
I personally, I'll be honest, I just like the first one. Just the classic Wrecking Ball. It's very, down to earth, basic, and even if it is very easy, I just like that whole idea of him just flying around with a Wrecking Ball, trying to smash you.
It does make sense though, right? Because you find him I guess if you go through story-wise, he's trying to knock the place over so he can start building stuff, so it makes sense that he's going around knocking over trees and stuff with a wrecking ball to start putting up buildings.
And it does make sense that he has a Death Star.
Yes. Which is like an egg, but we'll get onto that later.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
on the note of the storyline there, one thing I noticed that we didn't bring up at all either was how well the gradual transition from organic to man-made environments worked out as well. And that's kind of how the game became a bit more angular as it went on. Yeah. Specifically because, you're getting deeper and deeper into Eggman's infrastructure and everything, and so that's why that's where the loss of nature came from. But you could still make the argument that... That's right, we haven't actually.
You lose a lot of nature in Marble Zone.
It's more about the old world. It's ruins and what had been in the past. It's not new mechanical stuff. It's pre-industrial, so it's not like it's like. There's also it's like same thing with Labyrinth Zone. It's just ruins and past civilizations. So let's just think about the legacy of Sonic 1. Obviously, it starts the franchise, more or less. Well, it does start the franchise, and that's it. And of course, compared to its peers at the time, it was very, groundbreaking. We've gone over that a fair bit, and indeed, people have discussed it a lot. But I think, and people have touched upon this, it's very, very basic, or at least it feels like a downgrade in retrospect, and I think it's the same problem that Crash Bandicoot 1 and actually Super Mario Bros. 1 in some ways has, in that the first game, it's good for its time, but it has been way outpaced and superseded by its peers, and that if you were to go back and play one of the games from that era, you would go with one of its sequels. So Sonic 2, for instance, I think most people would say would be a good starting point, or Sonic 3 if they prefer. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
It absolutely is, because if you try to be like, hey, yeah, no, you should get into this series, play Sonic 1, they're gonna run into Marble Zone and lose interest.
Yeah. Start with Sonic 3 and K, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Like, can we just straight up CD is the better Sonic 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
even with Wacky Workbench.
Alright. I think I like Wacky Workbench. I mean, just because you get that shrink thing. Yeah. But I mean, thinking about Sonic 1's legacy for a second, and just I don't know what to really say.
I don't know. I think I'd recommend starting with Sonic 1 mostly because it teaches you the patience that you're going to need to deal with some of the that comes later. In general, you can't go into the franchise and be the kind of fan who's like, this is all about going fast. It's like, no. If you try and play through this series, you're going to need to grit your teeth, and you're going to need to put up with some bull.
So you're saying that Marble Zone is just a metaphor for 06?
Well, no, Marble Zone, I think going back to what we said earlier at some point, is that Marble Zone is a bit like the Werehog, in the sense that Sonic Team have always been trying to balance speed and, something else, like, the Werehog, or just, basically they're trying not to be all fast. You can't just be speed. You have to have some,
Otherwise, you'll be an
depth.
arcade game that lasts for like an hour or 2 hours at most.
Yeah.
We should put something else in this game. What do you recommend? Like, I don't know, like jumping and planning it?
I mean,
Okay.
Sega, I'm surprised they didn't put pachinko in it.
Well,
play.
well, hang on. Wouldn't you argue that the special stages are pachinko?
They
Yeah,
actually kind of are.
As I said, it's like Bagatelle
The most
or
fitting
pinball.
metaphor.
But you can control the ball.
Yeah, well, it's still the same sort of principle where you're always falling down and you're at the mercy of the environment in some way.
Mhm.
But I suppose that is true, yeah.
And like Yoto says, you don't win anything, so it's exactly like pachinko.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we need to talk about the Chaos Emeralds just to go back a bit. I mean, they're just there. There's 6 of them. I think that's all you need to say. But it's just interesting how, looking back on that, you don't have Supersonic, which, to be fair, isn't a huge necessity. But
And literally all it gives is just a different ending screen, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's
then
kind of just a
MacGuffins.
place to get, bonus points. That's what I always thought the special stage as in Sonic 1. It's more of a way to get extra, points and a continue. Because you can't really get those at any other point in the game other than the special stages. So while, your ultimate goal is to get the Chaos Emerald, it's really just because the game is so unforgiving in other parts, it's kind of a place to, get something back.
And
Well, I just
keep it
play
in
them
the
because
theme
they're
with the keep it in theme with the nature versus machines kind of thing. They happen to be like precious natural stones rather than stealing Eggman's robot things or breaking something of his.
yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you were talking about the legacy, I was thinking it's kind of interesting how even the level progression in Sonic 1 kind of set the stage for every, Sonic game. Every first one was kind of a grassy plain. It's it kind of starts off on a grassy plain or island kind of environment, and then it kind of goes from there to water stage or something, and then from
And
there
it just
to a more-
progressively gets more and more industrialized until you get to Eggman's base.
Yes.
We were talking about, I guess, the legacy of the game.
Yeah,
Or
legacy of the
legacy
game.
Sonic 1 on both, I guess, the rest of the series, and I
wanted
guess
to,
just the industry as a whole.
I mean,
I wanted to mention about that.
yeah. Let's just talk about how it affected. Sorry.
Because before Sonic came along, Nintendo was just destroying all the competition, and the Sega came with this one game this one title challenged the entire premise of Nintendo's market,
Yeah.
and really started
It's
off the console.
Sorry.
It really is like Star Wars in a sense, because it's big organization, and then just the underdog coming up and competing with them.
Yeah, it showed you that one good game can make a console
That's
and give
a
it
fair
a decent
point.
fighting chance.
I mean, actually, just thinking about it, I mean, we need to really step back and appreciate how hugely successful this franchise is. And I know that's largely due to its continual pace and, Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and just continual marketing and all the rest of it. But if Sonic 1 was not good to begin with, it wouldn't have worked. So we wouldn't have had the Macy's parade balloon, which... when you just think about it, when does a video game character warrant getting his own balloon in a parade for some shop? But Sonic 1 just captured the imagination, and Sonic as a character captured the imagination, and he got his own comic, his own cartoon series, his own pasta. It's just
To be
yeah.
fair,
mean,
Pikachu also got a balloon. So
Sorry,
That's Pikachu's.
Pikachu. Well, yeah, but that's
But then you're
Sonic
saying
was
that
the
Sonic
first
is as
one to
much of
do
a cultural
that.
phenomenon.
Yeah, but
as
Sonic was the
Pokemon.
first one.
Yeah, but
well,
Pikachu's
just
one out
saying
of
that-
150. That was like they picked the best one out of 150. Like Sonic was just kind of like on his own.
I know.
Yeah, but my point was that this was the first time we saw that, and I think Sonic was the first, video game character to be in Macy's parade. But the point is that it's Sonic completely overturned Mario's dominance in the video game market and completely stole his spotlight, and that is very much down to Sonic's one's gameplay, and maybe not its gameplay in retrospect, but just the general effect, the graphics, the sound, the attitude, the character design, all of these things combining together, and people were just going, wow, this is great. And I suppose going to Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope, the first Star Wars, let's just say, it's good, but Empire Strikes Back was much better. But you wouldn't have had Empire Strikes Back without Star Wars, so you can't have Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 without Sonic 1 to launch yourself off from.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget, though, I think it's a really interesting point as well that I think Sonic, more so than overtaking Mario, sort of carries the buck, because up until the point that the NES came out, especially with that ROB attachment, they did sort of, after the video game crash, everybody was unwilling to sort of invest in a machine, and once the NES got into everybody's houses under the guise of a toy machine and proved that video games can be successful, Sonic came along and went, yeah, okay, let's do it, and let's take it, and people were like, oh, okay, well, they were ready to trust in consoles again after the crash. Which is something that we wouldn't have had without Mario, right?
Yeah. I mean, actually, and again, we could always talk about some of the, rip-off sort of, Sonic-alikes like Bubsy, Awesome Possum, and Era the Acrobat with varying degrees of success, but I think another thing about Sonic is that he also kickstarts that, animal attitude, and he's... I suppose in some ways he's the, by being such a prolific character in media, he helps push video games into the household even further than Mario did.
And like you said, he kind of Sonic 1 kind of set the pace for what the generic Call of Duty clone equivalent of the early 90s was.
The animal mascot platformer.
The animal mascot platformer. Okay, let's. How about we finish off and just sort of say what we would change, or something we could add, or take away, or how do you do it differently? Would that be a good way to finish off?
I suppose.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just know. It's just. I don't know what it is about me today. I was. Again, I apologise. So, to cap us off, what would you change about Sonic 1 if you could change one thing? Just going around here. Blazy.
I would honestly just say make the levels themselves flow better from one to the next in regards to how they play and how they feel. It would be fine to have a slower stage like Marble if it wasn't for the fact that it completely abandoned the majority of how the physics work from Green Hill and everything, and instead just made it such linear. And that's actually the other point we never mentioned really before about Marble, is how linear a stage it is compared to the relatively more open nature of something like Green Hill. It was very, very on rails, and if you expanded the same sort of openness that I had that was in the stages that I talked about as having worked, and applied that and the pacing more so to those that didn't, I think the game itself would have turned out a lot better.
And Garaco, something you would change about Sonic 1?
Probably the level design and the physics. Kind of make it
readable, I suppose is the word. So, like, you know, like I said earlier about the example of me going down the ramp with rings and such, you know, you would use your level design to sort of give hints to the player on what they should and shouldn't do at that time. So, I remember in Labyrinth Zone there was a moment where you go past this checkpoint and, like, there's these 3 blocks that the water just starts rising up and lifts up these 3 blocks. And I'm there thinking, okay, what do? I can't go anywhere. The block's just risen. And I discovered I was meant to jump on them before the water rose. And I could do nothing but, you know, drown. So I think, you know, give good cues and level design to guide the player without them realizing it. And, like Blazy said, just sort of make it flow well.
So basically,
Just change the game.
no, just make sure we don't run into what we did with Sonic 3 with the barrel.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, I mean, isn't that just a symptom of the of games of that era where they were very unintuitive in some regards?
I mean, probably, yeah, because I've played quite a few games of that era out of curiosity, and I think they were deliberately quite hard to get into. I think because it might have just been a coincidence, because, you know, back then you would have read the manual, you would understand what you were meant to do, but I don't know. It could have been something that was down to the times where game design was such a new thing. Because nowadays, you look at the way you would design a game nowadays is nothing like you would have done back then.
Well, I think it's probably just a holdover from arcade design, where you want to suck in quarters by making the character die. Maybe. I think that's probably it. Yeah, Rick, how do you change Sonic 1?
Well, like the guys were saying, right? It's just make the level designs more conducive to play. So, taking stuff out that isn't entirely obvious and moving stuff around to make it sure that, you know, when you're playing through stages, you're not like, oh my god, why did they put this in, like, with marble, right? Like, make it play better, like, you know, not smoother, but at least a little, like, make it read easier as you're going through it. And then I would totally switch the bosses around.
Mm-hmm.
I would reskin the Labyrinth boss to be
the final boss,
Scrap Brain, and I'd stick it the other way around. So rather than, you know, getting to the end and literally, like, I mean, why even bother putting no rings at the end of that last stage anyway to make it threatening when you get crushed to death in one hit? It just doesn't read like it was designed that way. It sort of seemed like they just stuck it in at the last minute, right? And I'd have the chase in a Labyrinth be up Scrap Brain for some reason. You have to climb up to the top of Scrap Brain and break something at the top of it, and that's why you're chasing him up, and he's shooting off flamethrowers and bullets and spikes and all that jazz.
Yeah, why don't you... now you think about it, there's no, you know, super weapon or, you know, big plan. It's just stop Dr. Robotnik in general.
You go to a factory and beat on a fat guy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really...
And then in 2, somebody watched Star Wars and we go into space.
Yeah, exactly. That's that. Anyway, Simple. What would you change?
I would remove the spike bug. Honest to God, that was the thing that kind of made that was the kind of thing.
Oh god, the spike bug
ruined so many experiences.
Yeah.
How did we somehow not even mention that until just now?
Well, I mean, the thing about Sonic 1 is that's so much to talk about, and we've gone like 2 hours.
2 hours.
Almost. Yoto, one thing you'd change. Or is he not here?
I don't think
That's been done.
I think Yoto and Shrok have dropped out because we've spent so long. So, you know, guys, this is a very new podcast, so we will have a few ups and downs. A bit like Sonic 1, it's a learning experience. I myself, I think I would make the screen just a bit wider so you can see what's up ahead. Is, I suppose, similar to what everyone else has been saying, make the game a little bit more easy to follow as a what?
Or kind of like that screen extension thing from Sonic CD, like when you're going pretty fast.
Yeah, I think Or maybe make the camera zoom out even when you go faster, like in the Grand Theft Auto games on PC, well, the first ones, where as you sped up, the camera panned back, the camera zoomed out so you could see farther ahead, and when you slowed down, it zoomed in. That was always... I think that could work in Sonic, but of course...
Oh, like the 2D Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, as I was saying, 2D top-down Grand Theft Autos. Actually, one thing which we haven't really touched upon, I suppose as a negative, do you think that, Sonic and I suppose this relates to the problems with Marble and Labyrinth Zone, is that because you're going slowly, Sonic is very tanky as a character. He has a lot of weight.
There is a point
Mario. Yep.
You're getting stuck on where you're underwater and you're stuck in between two sets of spikes that are jumping up and down, and you have to sort of have a running start before you get to them, because if you walk up to them and then try and walk through them, you'll get killed because you're too slow. So you need to build up some momentum, but doing that from a standing start and also while you're underwater makes that a really tricky section.
Yeah, well,
momentum.
It just seems unnecessary. It just seems like an unnecessary section to put there.
Doing precise platforming in Labyrinth Zone, Marble Zone, is quite finicky, because you jump and it's quite floaty. Well, not floaty, but it's just weighty.
The problem with Sonic is at any point when you're at a stop, like if you are not currently moving, Sonic is really hard to move. And so I always said, while I do, accept that Sonic is a platformer, I would say that platforming has never really been his forte, because moving from a standing start always feels really bad. You never want to be just stopped and then start jumping with Sonic, unless you're trying to jump directly above you or to the left. If you're trying to go any distance with Sonic, or try to gain any speed, or go up any incline, or do anything, you need to have at least marginal speed, which is why the spin dash is such a godsend.
Yeah, the lack of spin dash in Sonic 1 is quite awkward.
I think it's just really weird because of how many games post 1 have it as sort of like a default thing. So it's like removing a leg.
Yeah. Or not having a run button in
trying to play without one. But so many people are expecting when they get jammed that they're like, oh, it's not here.
Yeah. I was going to say, you mentioned earlier, and I was just in a situation where I couldn't talk, but one thing what I would change about... Hold on a second. If I could change anything about Sonic 1, it would definitely be the spike bug. I hate that so much, but it would also be a good sense of scale. A lot of stuff happens to you slightly off screen, what Bloke was saying. There's a lot of scenes and parts in Labyrinth Zone where you're on a crane that's lifting you up, and you'll get lifted up into spikes, and you won't even notice that that's what's happening until the last second, and then you just get smothered because it's an insta kill.
Yeah, I just saw that actually. But isn't that kind of the point, though, with that kind of design? Isn't that supposed to be a surprise to panic you?
Yeah, I suppose. It's reaction.
It's not enough of a warning, though. You barely see the top of Sonic's head as it's happening, and so it would be completely reaction. Unlike, say, if you're going up and you saw them coming from maybe maybe one Sonic length away, one full Sonic buddy length away, and it was moving slow enough for you to react, then I'd be like, yeah, that's a reaction thing. But the time...
You're supposed to press up every time, though, man. You're supposed to be paranoid as hell in there pressing up to get the extra, 1 inch of screen space.
Sonic 1 is a game that makes you feel like Sonic is really scared of Eggman, because he never knows what's going to be around the corner.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be one Sonic away. It's supposed to be one Boom Knuckles away.
Well... Shall we get to the end?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Final thoughts. Summarize Sonic 1 in 1 sentence. Keep it pithy and say your piece. Blazy?
It could have been a lot better, but what we got was already, despite as much as I've liked about some things, it was already still pretty solid, and it led to a lot more that was a lot better.
Garaco?
This game is why I have trust issues.
Okay.
But no, seriously, like, honestly, like, I think, how do I go about saying this? Comparison to its legacy, it doesn't seem to be as good, but when you think about it for its own time, it was amazing.
Rick?
A solid start
Yeah.
that introduces pretty much everything it needed to.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. Okay, simple. Keep it simple.
How do we take down Nintendo? I got it. Speed. Wait, like the drug? No, go fast. Okay. That's a dramatization of what happened.
Like a grandparent, you gotta respect, right? Like, it was solid in its prime. It might be a little shaky now, but if it wasn't there, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Rick, you are supposed to say one, not several sentences. Okay, right. Okay, as for myself, basically, yeah, solid start, but if you're going back to it, start with Sonic 2. And Yoto, I'm afraid, is dropped out because he's busy as Shrek. So that'll be it for now. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we've kept you entertained and kept you interested in whatever it is we're talking about, Sonic 1 or something like that, I suppose. We've only spent about a few hours on it. So this was Fattoler, and from all of us, goodbye.
Later, guys. See you next time.
It's a good night from me.
And a good night from him.
Sayonara.
There you go.
Shadow the Hedgehog. I don't know. I'm trying.
It's okay.
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself there. That's going to be a few more casts down the road when we get to that game.